It started with fire. A low-slung courier skiff, its name long abandoned, drifted between the skeletal remains of piers and rusting cargo husks, its hull carved up by barnacles and old bullet scores. Midnight, or close enough to forget the difference. The sky hung heavy and bruised above Old Dockmass, with the sea below churning like a stomach after bad code. Then came the bloom, orange and sudden. A hiss of pressure and fire that tore the boat apart from the inside. Flames rolled across the inlet like a funeral veil, licking at the gang-tagged buildings and waterlogged saints. And from the wreckage floated something too deliberate to be flotsam. A severed hand, bound in polywire and wrapped in a clear plastic bag. Male, bone white, fingers twitching, not from nerves, but as if miming something forgotten. A gesture, a signal. The tide rolled it gently toward the collapsed boardwalks of the Drown Market, right past a half-sunk freight crate covered in Saint graffiti. Nobody knew it, but somebody was watching from the rooftops. The hand was the delivery. You don't come to me if you want clean. You come when the corpos have your calls on mute, and the gangs want their problems to disappear, not get solved. Name's Cal. Private Eye, we used to be called. Skelter Row's finest trash filter. My office sits above an old record shop that sells grief simulations to jazz runners. You hear the sax even when you don't want to. The walls here breathe mold and the rain's acidic half the year. But it's home, and they say home is where the heart is. Right? Case file 1764, the Red Hand Protocol. It was one of those mornings, just enough light to remind you the world's still spinning, when she walked in. Lisa Corin, courier, or used to be, before retirement and bad optics clouded her stare. Rain on her coat, smog in her hair, that half-burned scent of stim smoke clinging to her like bad debt. She dropped a flash key on my desk and said one word: protocol. Then she told me about the hand. Dockmass is a graveyard pretending to be a district. The police don't patrol where their pensions don't stretch, and Old Dockmass drowned years ago, first in debt, then in seawater. The smuggler guilds and tide gangs carved it up into dripping kingdoms, and if someone dies out there, it's considered recycling. But this hand, it wasn't gang fallout, it was a message. Written not in ink or data, but in nerves. Someone had encoded something into the fibers of a severed courier's hand. You don't call cops for that. You call someone like me. I hitched a skimmer through the rust canals, passing beneath fungus-eaten rail bridges and flickering lantern towers. A jazz runner on a nearby rooftop howled into the night, his sax backed by synthetic drums patched into rusted drone speakers. Not bad, but not great either. At least they had a soul left to speak above the endless churned-out digital noise, and the guts to let people hear it. As we moved south, the buildings drooped like melting idols. Neon signs advertised amputee AUG clinics and VR memory dumps. I passed a street preacher baptizing cyber addicts in drain water, screaming about code-shaped angels. Religion. Everyone's always looking for a savior of some sort. Mine was sitting half empty in a drawer of my desk back at the office. Lisa was waiting near a graffiti-blasted buoy at the edge of the Drown Market. She led me down submerged streets, rooftops turned sidewalks, boats tied to old lampposts. We passed scavengers and rebreathers, tugging crates of printed protein from newly submerged vending machines. She took me to the Rust Chapel, a half-submerged gang-neutral church turned exchange house. Inside, people argued in hushed tones. Ash bones, dock saints, even a smuggler queen's bodyguard. Something was brewing. For once, the static was human and dangerous. We moved to a cold chamber in the back. The severed hand floated in a nutrient cradle, suspended in synthetic gel. Tubes pulsed faint green, like veins feeding something long dead. Its fingers twitched, not randomly, but in rhythm. Residual signal? I asked. Sort of, Lisa said. High-grade courier imprinting. But this one's doing something else. Like it's waiting. Yeah, but for what? I scanned it. Neural threading was still intact. Someone had coded information into the nerve endings. No digital transmission, no implants, just biology. Pure encrypted nerve impulse code. I know a guy. Sten Vargo would know more, so I decided to pay him a visit. Steen ran a jazz bar called Velvet Collapse, set inside a defunct cathedral. Ceiling had collapsed years ago, and someone had turned it into a sound-reactive light garden. He owed me favors from the war, probably still kept the bullet. He took one look at the scans and sat down hard. "This is war code," he whispered. "Surrender patterns from the Second Pulse Offensive, modified, ritualized. This is peace wrapped in sacrificial skin." "What does it say?" I asked. Sten hesitated, chewing on his lip as he weighed up whether to spill the info. "So, what is it?" I pressed him for an answer. "It's not just a message, it's a signal. A truce, sent using Red Hand Protocol." "Red Hand's real?" Red Hand Protocol wasn't a person. It wasn't a gang. It was a kill switch buried in the courier networks during the last conflict. Something to trigger if the body count hit old war thresholds. It wasn't made to stop wars. It was made to end them. No negotiation, no lines drawn, just equal ruin. Problem was, no one believed it existed. Not after the neuro-purge of 2102. Until now. And the sons of bitches plan to do it again if needed. I got that old feeling in the gut. The one that told me cashing my check could be the least of my worries after it was over. This one was big. If Red Hand got into the wrong pocket, then everyone had a problem. And everyone would be looking for it. I started tracing the courier's path. Went by the name of Reed Cal Raine, ex-mill runner. Made his way from Circuit Hollow, through Ashbelt, and into Dockmass. Every stop, someone died behind him. Quietly, surgically. I visited the old museum-turned-data shrine run by the Ashbones. Their leader, Nella Two Spines, wore chrome ribs outside her body and greeted me with a bone-thin smile. "Yeah, we saw him," she said. "We didn't stop him. We should have. He was carrying peace like a disease." "You know where he was headed?" "Would it matter if I did?" "It could, yeah. What happens in Dockmass stays here, diver. You know that." "Yeah, I know that." I caught the two augmented stim apes from the corner of my eye, which told me the conversation was over. So I said my goodbyes to Nella and left. Outside, I lit a cigarette with the question still playing like a dog chasing its tail. So who was the buyer? And why? The why was easy to figure. Who wouldn't want a switch that could turn of half the city on a whim? The who? I could narrow that down to about half the city. Back in Dockmass, gang leaders argued over what the message meant. Flame Gang said it was bait. Saints said it was divine. The Smuggler Guild offered me credits to make it disappear. Even the Trinity sent a drone. No weapons, just a recording. Delete the signal, let Entropy sort it. Entropy, those black op bastards would push the button themselves given the chance. I made my choice. I needed to lay low until this died down. I'd painted a target on my back I couldn't wash off, and Lisa had helped. I confronted her in the back room of a stim bar off Skelter Row. The place was dying under the weight of rain and saxophone loops. She looked thinner, like the guilt had finally started eating something vital. She cracked like a frozen window. "He wasn't delivering it," she said. "He was the message. The red hand isn't a warning, it's a mirror. If you see it, it means you're already dead and don't know it yet. You said he was delivering the message. But that's only half of it." Lisa slid an old gang sigil pin across the table. It bore the emblem of a dead crew, crimson fold. One of the first to vanish after the last truce fell apart. "Red Hand wasn't just war protocol," she said. "It was gang code. A myth, a threat, and a negotiation tool rolled into one. Only the most desperate carried it when you were out of allies, out of bodies, and still had one message left. That you were ready to end everything, no takebacks, no turf left to stand on. You drop the red hand and everyone who ever owed you a bullet pays up, or bleeds out." I leaned in. "Why'd the gangs want it now?" "Because it proves the Trinity's hands were all over the last peace accords. Fabricated neutrality. They brokered fake truces while arming both sides. This message, the nerve code, it names names, pulls the Vale back on every double-cross deal that kept Black Vale's gangland map stable. She pulled the chip from my coat. They didn't want the message stopped. They wanted to own it so they could rewrite history on their terms. So why kill the courier? She lit a stim cigarette. Her fingers shook. Because some stories aren't meant to survive delivery. She was right. Take it out of the equation. It was the only choice. Let everyone see it. I went up to the old telecom spire at the edge of Glass Reach. Abandoned since the Dome project went bankrupt. Took a lift through collapsed comm layers, past derelict drones and birds' nests built from fiber cable. The city lay beneath me. Skelter Row blinking in blues and reds. Dockmass flickering like a dying candle. Beyond it, the Vale fringe shimmered like rust on the horizon. I inserted the chip. For a moment, nothing. Then the towers began to hum. The red hand message hit like a scalpel to the skull. Once the signal went live, encoded in the neural twitch of a dead man's hand, broadcast from a forgotten tower in Glass Reach, there was no walking it back. Every major gang in Black Vale saw their betrayals play out in raw code. Names, coordinates, secret trades with Trinity enforcers, false ceasefires signed in blood. I'd started a war, but at least it was one you could see coming, one you could run away from. Old Dockmass went first. The drown market became a killing field. Flame gangs torching smuggler guilds, saints drowning hackers in tide cages. Then Skelter Row cracked. Assassins once paid by ash bones turned on their clients. VR dens were bombed in retaliation. Even the info brokers couldn't keep their feet dry. Too many of them knew too much. The message wasn't a truce. It was a reckoning. Gangs turned on each other not because they wanted war, but because the truth made peace untenable. The illusion had been safer. Some tried to escape. Whole outfits vanished into the Vale fringe, hoping analog soil could bury digital sins. Others fled to the null zone to join the tech cults, seeking redemption in drone faith. And some stayed. Now they walk the alleys with fingers missing, self-mutilated tributes to the Red Hand legend. Not out of worship, out of fear. And me? I sit in my office listening to saxophone bleed through the walls and rain hit the broken neon sign. The city didn't burn clean, but maybe it burned honest, for now at least. And in Black Vale, that's as close to justice as anyone gets. Got a case you want me to look into? Leave it in the comments and maybe I'll see you in my office. Stay safe out there, Black Vale. This is Cal Raine, signing off.